Mana mana bidi bidi bi. Mana mana
Bidi bidi.
mana mana
Bidi bidi bi.
mana mana
Bidi bidi.
mana mana bidi bidi bi bidi bi bidi bi bidi 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 bidi. Whoa! Ich glaube, wir sind online. I think we're online.
Hopefully.
Hello, welcome to our talk. My name is Chida. I'm the director of the show.
And I'm Haku.
You're who?
I'm your stage director.
Stage what?
Stage management, you know.
I don't know. I just write a script and then 6 months later shit happens. That's my entire job.
No. That's not how it works. Totally different. There's a lot of management involved.
Okay.
And this shit wouldn't happen if there weren't a management team, Risa, Liam, and me making this shit happen.
Okay, but this show is supposed to be fun and entertaining, and we can't talk about management for the next 2
Oh,
hours.
yes, we can. Even all the war stories, if there is interesting stuff, all have the management side on that. It's really good stuff.
It's so boring. People want to see blow shit up, catch on fire, collapse, everything.
They will. When you write a script and shit happens that you don't even remember, you know?
I don't remember.
That's the point of it. The chickens?
Oh, the chickens. Well, you
Go
guessed
on.
it. You guessed it. We're going to have a talk about management and thing that blows up. And that brings us to our very first chapter of this show. And that is you write a script and unexpected shit happens.
It does.
Simple instructions leading to complicated execution. And what does that actually mean? Well, many times I write a single line into the script, and this gets handed over to the stage management and to the art directors and to everyone else, and they have to figure out how to actually make that what I wrote into a reality. And funny things happen. We are starting with an example here from The Keepers of the Light. That's our show from EF20. The chickens. It's quite fascinating. We wrote a script of the very, very first scene that takes place in a village, and at some point we started the rehearsal. And no, we didn't start the rehearsal. At some time, we started distributing the script to all the team. That's what we always do while we are writing it. And at some point, someone posted this work in progress. And I said, okay, all right, what is this? And they said, well, it's an animatronic chicken. And I said, I don't remember having any animatronic chickens in this show. Could you please clue me in what this is about? Because, see, this is the script. And as you can see, there's the list of the puppets. And if there's definitely no chicken listed there. And they said, oh, yeah, of course, there's listed chicken. You just have to read the other part. Up there it says. Lots of chicken, yeah. See, there, chickens flapping around. Non-anthropomorphic chickens flapping around. And, that's the moment when I went, because, of course, there were chicken in it, but I didn't remember writing it. Because all the scenes start with this little paragraph there on top, which describes the overall setting and theme. I mean, it's not a detailed description how to build this scene. That is something that we all do together. But it's there to capture the overall theme and the overall atmosphere of the scene. And it was a rural setting, so there were chickens. So what did we do? Well, these guys had already started with their chickens, so we made it official. So we actually changed the script. This is the new revision, and that has now chickens all over the place. And I even added sound effects for the chickens that were not there. And here's the result. Here's the finished scene, including the chickens.
Horse.
I'm going to get my own hunting knife.
How do you know?
I just know. And I also know what you are going to get.
Oh, tell me.
Don't I know you're a telltale.
I'm not. I won't. I swear. Not even Mom. Come on.
And what's in for me?
Snowbell, Sun Chaser, get your little fuzzy behinds over here right now.
I'm coming, Mommy.
Wait for me.
So
Yeah.
there you have it. Chickens.
From the management side, well, we do a strictly online collaboration. Even before the corona pandemic, we still had all the tools in place because we live scattered across Germany or even Europe, and we have to find a way to work together. And at that moment, we just receive the script online and read it without the person who has written it sitting next beside to us and explaining everything. So we start to figure out what's in the script, and we just saw a chicken. If there is something really questionable, we don't understand, well, then we can ask. But why should we ask? There's chicken inside of it, and if there's an inconsistency in the script, like the puppet line does not have a chicken, that's not the first time. So we just add the stuff that's missing. So we had chickens. We put it on our to-do list. We commissioned one of our person to build chicken, and so they just went live.
And in the end, I got chicken. Yeah, this is a classic example of a simple line in the script kicking off an avalanche of actions and work. And it reminds me that when I write the script, have to be very, very careful what I wish for, because people might actually do it. But often the instructions we put in there are also intentionally vague, because we have very creative people on the creative team, and we are leaving them a lot of artistic freedom to come up with their own ideas how to implement what we write.
You mean you're just too lazy to write things up?
No, seriously. I'm not an artist, I'm a writer, so you do your job best, I do mine best. And it is sometimes... when I already had a technical solution in mind, then often you guys approach it completely differently and do it so much better than what I came up with. So, like the underwater scene, for example.
If
you remember that.
Let's show them.
That brings us to End Tide. Well, in End Tide, we have the Paw Patrol fantasy version of a coral reef. Rock and corals are in the foreground. That's what the description says in the script. I will read this. The script says, the Paw Patrol fantasy version of a coral reef. Rock and corals are in the foreground. Lots of moving and non-moving stuff is growing on the seafloor, glowing green, blue, and red. An underground seaweed plantation can be seen. It's a black box scene with no backdrop. Everything is fluorescent. Puppets are operated by black stage ninjas. Yeah, that's all the script said. Really, that's the complete descriptions. And, well, this is how it turned out when my stage management was finished with it.
1, 2, 3.
Woohoo!
There we go. Is everything all right? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Oh, wow. This is so beautiful. Woohoo!
You can see the team took it quite seriously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving stuff.
It sure is.
Yeah, but we made one
as a
important change.
marine biologist, you
The
probably know a
projection,
whole
we
lot
ditched
more
that
about all
idea
this than
because
I
it
do.
would have ruined the UV effect
there.
totally, and so we decided to use
umbrella
soap
squid.
bubbles to simulate air bubbles to create a better underwater effect. But unfortunately, soap bubbles will always flow downwards, while air bubbles in water will always float upward.
Yeah. That's one of those things. How do you simulate water bubbles that float up when soap bubbles actually float down? Well, what did we do? Well, of course, we filled the soap bubbles with helium instead of air.
Totally reasonable. That's the best thing you could do at
The
the moment.
simplest idea. So this is a view from the stage off the side, and you can see that little black box down there. That's the bubble machine. And the bubble machine is connected to this inconspicuous bottle behind there, which does not have a pressure regulator on it.
No, don't tell that part. So
Don't tell it to the workers' union.
no.
And now when you follow the line, we are professionals, we can do this. You can see one of the hoses is going to,
Don't do this at
to the
home.
one bubble machine. And then the other hose goes to
Another bubble machine.
the other bubble machine. So yeah, and
To be honest, even we were surprised it actually worked. So, we had little issues at first. We needed many workarounds at that moment, but like soap bubbles don't live forever. They collapse at one moment, and all that
oh yeah,
soap fluid starts raining down. Normally, that's not a problem, but
if you have UV bubbles, it's like radioactive fallout.
yeah, we had to add UV paint to that to make them visible in UV light, because only having soap bubbles that are not reflective would have made no
Yeah,
effect
well,
at
you
all.
wouldn't be able to see them.
Yeah,
And all the actors are clad in black, so you don't see them. But if you have like UV active soap fallout raining on them, they suddenly become visible. And that's why we had to turn off one of the bubble machines, depending on where on the stage the actors were, so they don't get rained upon.
yeah, and become visible. Yeah.
Yep. And I think we could never have another show at the Maritime in UV light again, because at the end of the scene, when we broke all this down, the one stagehand tipped over the bubble machine and we spilled all the UV bubble fluid over the entire carpet. And you can't see it during the day, but if you turn UV light, it looks like a crime scene.
Yeah.
It's a massacre.
Luckily, that was the last year we were on that stage in that hotel, so
Yeah.
we never found out if anybody noticed.
Someone on Patreon asked us about the umbrella jellyfish and how that came to be. And I'm going to show you a little clip from the rehearsal now, so you can see how we actually rehearsed this scene before we had the whole stage set up. So there we go.
Wow! This is beautiful!
Yeah. It sure is.
Yep. And enjoy the helium-filled condoms.
A whole lot more about all this than I do.
You have to work with what you have at hand, yes.
Yeah.
This is the first time I can actually see it myself. It's mind-blowing. Look at that over there. It's a giant umbrella squid.
Oh, I knew that one.
Flop.
Flop. There it goes. And how did that happen?
Never seen
Well,
one up so
totally
close.
by accident.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to meet him.
Totally by accident. We didn't have any props to rehearse the scene with, and so as you can see, we used random objects lying there as stand-ins. And one of the things that were there was my umbrella that actually using as a sunscreen, like as a parasol. And we went like, well, that's totally jellyfish. Let's use that. And well, the rest is history.
Yeah. Oh, wow. The entire logistics of that scene was a nightmare. It involved dozens of props being handed around, and it required everyone to be at the right place in the right time. The script only describes the interactions, but the backstage team has to figure it all out, while the director's just sitting there and laughing at you.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, next up, another example for unintended consequences. We have a true blast from the past now, because I think one of my most infamous one-line instructions comes from the script of the show The Unlucky 13.
Oh, that's before my time. I leave that one to you. So what did the infamous line say?
It said, "Here comes the greatest light show ever seen in a puppet show."
Did you ever have a light show at the Paw Patrol Show before?
Nope,
So that sounds a little bit like a pretty low bar to me.
not quite. You have to keep in mind we're talking about the year 2007. The budget we had for fancy lights would have been barely enough to light up the men's bathroom at the Astral. So the crew guys had to come up with a way to make something cool from, well, basically nothing. But, well, they still came up with a wonderful trick that was dirt cheap and left everybody guessing how the hell we did that. So let's watch the video, and if you think you figure it out, put your guesses in the chat. And no, Paw Patrol members are excluded from this. Es ist so dunkel, dass du es nur sehen kannst, wenn du näher dran bist. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit dark. I can tell you a little bit more about the camera just in a moment.
We just said it was quite old, and the camera technology evolved a lot since then.
Yeah. I'm still getting goosebumps when I see this. So, what's the management lesson here?
Yeah, the management lesson I'm taking home from this is you need to be expensive with your special effects to be effective.
Yeah, it was not expensive, but I took home a different management lesson to this. And that is, if you plan the best light show that has ever been at Eurofurence, then you should definitely talk it through with your camera people. Because if you don't, the result will look like this. So much for the greatest light show of all times.
Yeah, trying to capture something you don't even know what you're expecting, and it's dark, you're out of focus. This happens.
Yeah, I'd love to show you more about the greatest light show, but yeah, it turned out nobody thought about the fact that most of the light effects were above the camera people, so you can't see even half of the light effects, and that one camera that captured some of them went completely out of focus the moment the lights went out. So, yeah.
Yeah, we do things different today, yeah. Well, more than 10 years later, the camera crew maintains their own version of the script, so they are on our rehearsals and they have seen what they have to expect. So this shouldn't happen again, because they actually work with us in the pre-production. So, yeah.
So, did anybody of you figure out how we did the trick? No? Let me check this chat. What did they say? Drawing with UV paint? No, we did not draw anything during that scene. We made it look like something's being drawn, but nope. Okay.
No
okay,
live drawing
let's see.
there, yeah.
It includes drawing? No, we did not draw it. Well, we had to draw it at some point.
At one time we had, but not live now.
Okay. I've gone through my archives and I found the proof of concept video that that one of our guys did, and I'm going to show it to you now.
Yeah, masking tape.
Yeah, he's testing out how many layers of sticky tape on top of each other works best for pulling it off. But yeah, that's exactly how we did it. We painted the backdrop panels and then painstakingly put layers of black insulating tape over it. And then stagehands had to frantically pull it up and, pray it doesn't rip.
Yep.
And there we go. Yeah, that's it. Okay, now after the blast from the past, ready to move back into the present and modern day puppet shows?
Bring it on.
Of course, I'm talking about this. Yeah, we're talking about The Skies of a Star. Of course we do. We had to after our premiere. And The Skies of a Star, a story about the early days of aviation and the beast from another world.
It all started with Cheetah again asking a simple question on Telegram if we were fine of building a quad puppet again, like one of the tigers, Year of the Red. A cute little fluffy red dragon thing.
Yeah, and I remember Theo letting out a big maybe. If this is the only thing we have to build this year, then yes. And so we said, fine, Theo, you're great. Let's build another quad.
And it would have been okay. But then 4 weeks later, you told us that you wanted to be big enough to carry 3 other puppets on the back.
Yeah, it was essential to the story. So we had to add that in.
And then again, 4 weeks later, you told us that it is big enough to carry 3 other puppets and it needs full-sized articulated wings.
Yeah, but because how is it supposed to fly without wings?
Which technically makes this a hex puppet. So you do notice how there never was a mention of flying up to this point?
Well, by the moment we submitted the scene with 2 planes dogfighting, author, that should have been obvious, shouldn't it?
You didn't write that until halfway through production.
Oops, I guess.
So this was one more simple instruction exploding into one of the most complicated projects in PPS history.
So why don't you tell the audience how we did it?
Well, first of all, before Author could learn to fly, we had to teach her how to walk. And she is one beast of a puppet. So you see how many people are on there on this slide to operate this puppet. You need 5 people in worst case. So you have one person. Next slide. Yeah, just some moving pictures.
Yeah, this is how it looks during the show.
Yeah.
You have one big pile of puppeteers sniffing each other's parts.
So we have one person, you see here best operating the tail and the hind legs. So what's the next slide of it? Yeah, that's all the 5 people we had to operate this puppet. So at least when we had scenes where actually flying took place, we needed the wingmen. On other scenes, we needed at least 3 people to operate. I'm really grateful these 5 people took that much effort to learn this role. It looked magnificent. Maybe you saw yesterday the release of that video. It was really convincing. The author looked alive. These people really did a great job.
Yeah, so the question you all might ask is, how did we make Author fly? And to answer that question, well, before you can make her fly, you first must have... the one part we're not reading from script, you know?
Yeah.
So in order to make her fly, you first have to make her walk. And with a puppet that's 2 meters long and 15 kilos heavy, that's not an easy feat. So we have 3 basic methods to move Author around on stage.
The first thing we came up was this telescopic lift. We wanted to use it in even more scenes because it would carry all the weight of that puppet and you could easily move it around. But we have different levels of height behind the stage, so you can't move across steps with this construction. So it actually got a really limited use, and we had to think of something different for most of the scenes. So the next idea was carrying her on the back of a puppeteer, just distributing the weight on the shoulders. So we came up with an old what is this?
Yeah, this is a
called?
backpack that your
Firemen are using with the
yeah, that's where the breathing apparatus goes on.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're a firefighter and you're carrying those air bottles on your back, so that's one of these with the bottles removed, and
instead of the bottles, we just attached that aluminum part where we can put Arthur on top. So in this case, Olaf is carrying the weight of the puppet, but it's fairly easy. Instead of holding it up with your arms, it would tire you in just a few minutes, and it wouldn't be possible to play long scenes without this.
yeah, oh yeah, it's actually a diving gear harness, but basically the same thing. And the puppeteer who carries Arthur on their back can also play the front paws because they are then close enough.
Yeah.
Then come the flying scenes.
Yeah, at least we had these flying scenes with the planes, and Arthur had to go on top on another level higher than the planes, and we couldn't operate her from ground without another construction.
Yeah, because as you already seen, there's at least two people operating the plane. All the planes were mounted on moving platforms that we could push across the stage to get an illusion of flying and movement. And then Arthur had to fly over them. And as you saw in the earlier slides, don't try to make this happen when you're trying to fly over something. That is just completely impossible. So we came up with this idea. We built this huge wooden rig that we could hang Arthur from, and she would then be operated by long sticks and by the ropes she was hanging from. I can show you how the flying rig worked.
Yeah, this is an early version of Arthur before she got her fur.
She's still without fur back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the whole way from script to actually Arthur flying.
That was a lot of work, and this you can't see it in the script just from the few amount of lines that are describing all this.
And now that you saw the rehearsal, let's take a brief look at how that turned into the finished thing. Keep in mind what you saw and remember all the stuff that's going back in the background now.
Yeah.
So that's literally probably around 10 to 15 people on stage operating things right now.
Yeah. Actually, the UV light really worked well. They are invisible.
Yep.
What the hell?
Your flying machine looks unhappy.
Your flying machine looks unhappy.
My favorite line from that scene.
Yeah.
So there we go. So yeah, I think finally we created one of the most memorable characters of this show.
But you remember, Theo told you never build something like that again.
We will see. We will see.
Hope he's not watching
It's
right
been
now.
3 years. It's been 3 years.
Maybe.
All right. Next one.
Yep.
Next one. Juno Rising.
And the screen.
The screen.
Yes, the screen.
The screen.
That screen.
That screen. Yes, the screen. So, in our show, Juno Rising, we wrote a scene where the main characters enter an independent space stations and they first had to go through some sort of immigration check. And since this plays in an expanse-inspired future, I thought, wouldn't it be super cool if we had these gesture-controlled holo displays like in Minority Report? So where you can select stuff and move it around with gestures, just pointing around with your paws.
Another one of those infamous script lines.
Yeah, I had seen those pseudo-holographic displays at a trade show, and they were based on a projection trick. So these were actually like half-transparent screens, and they were projecting onto them. And I thought, well, it can't be too hard to copy that.
Yeah, we can't afford that technology. No. So it looks easy, but, well...
From my experience, you know, the more impossible something seems, the better you guys get at it.
In this case, we had Mandra and Zephyro who took up this challenge, and they came up with a pretty smart concept that could be built almost exclusively with parts from the dumpster.
Yeah, well, basically what I see is the complete user interface of the application you just
So
started.
that's the first proof of concept we had. And we thought we just remove the backlight from a regular computer monitor and then just light people up really bright. And then if the backdrop is just bright enough, you can see everything that's happening on screen. So pretty simple. And this was years before transparent OLED displays became a thing. So
At least not in a price range we could afford.
That was the first prototype that we tried at the first rehearsal. And when that worked out, Mandra went to work and gutted a big screen TV and built that into a kind of panel. And we tested that out too at the rehearsal. And you can see that, well, it made us realize how bright the backlight of such a big display actually is, because here we don't have any special lighting for the backdrop and you can barely see the guy behind it.
Yeah, and originally this should have been a really dark scene, so we on stage we had to crank the lights really high up to make this one work, but it actually, well, we will see it in the next few slides.
That
It was
actually
great.
works.
Did you get the documents I emailed you?
So here's the final thing.
Well, yes, we did.
And the animations on the screen are basically just a
Hang on,
PowerPoint.
I've got to make a call.
Whip.
Red alert! Evacuate sections A to C immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill.
What?
Red alert!
Stop!
Ah.
Stop!
Same thing from a different angle.
Some people thought the character behind the screen was actually recorded and played back through the screen. Now that would have been too simple.
No, it was all live.
All right. So this example concludes our chapter number 1. Little lines and big consequences. Although I have to admit, this is going to be the thread that goes through the entire thing. But to loop back to our original intention and tell you also a little bit of the management aspects of the Paw Patrol Show, the next chapter is you write a script and someone makes shit happen.
Exactly.
The joys of working with volunteers. So, working with volunteers is a big challenge. And you might ask, why is that? Well, the thing is, you have to consider every volunteer's personal interest. If you do something crazy like this, you could never pay anybody to do this for you. You would not be able to afford it. The success and the award of recognition and the applause at the end and the happiness of having created something, that is basically the payment for your volunteers. And whatever you need, whatever you want them to do, you have to find a way that it's fun for them too, because otherwise they will stop working for you. And on the other hand, if you have someone on your team who's nice and your best friend and motivated and just can't provide what everybody else in the team needs. You might be in a position where you have to fire your best friend from your team, and that's a bitter thing because you have a personal relationship. It's not an employee you can let go. These guys will remember, you know. So you often keep people on the team who are your best friends and who do their best, and you can't just kick them off just because what they do is not perfect. That's a no. You can't do that. And the hardest part is, well, I think Haku can tell a little bit about that.
Oh yes, volunteers just don't self-organize, and not everybody will take initiative just by themselves. You need to give them a purpose, a role, and something to do, and somebody needs to keep all these people busy. Otherwise, many people don't do that much.
Yeah, it's a thing. We sometimes start working on the script at the rehearsal and we say, all right, we have this job, who's going to take it? And then you hear crickets going. And some people just don't dare speaking up. Some people you have to give a job. And if you end up with people who do not have a job, it might look like something like this. Like poor CJ having nothing to do for at least 3 scenes. And he's sitting there during the rehearsal, looking really unhappy.
Yeah, it still can happen that you don't have to do anything to do for an entire scene, but we try to work around that as much as we can.
Yeah. So you can have a lot of fun working with volunteers, and you can have the other part of fun working with volunteers, because we have very limited control of what they do. Okay, I will now give Haku a short chance to show you at least very quickly that the tools we have developed to manage all this. Yeah. Because we have lots of script lines, we have lots of volunteers, and everything dissolves into a huge chaos unless, someone keeps the overview. And that's typically stage management, and that's Haku and Risa and lots of other talented people.
So this screen you can see right now is from our QScript. What is QScript? It's something we developed to parse our written script and check what kind of roles, what kind of props, what kind of puppets, what is in there, and put it in nicely overviews and tables to work with. So if everything goes well and people use the right tags and syntax during writing the script, we get something like this and see how many people we need to play all this stuff, and we derive different tables and lists from that.
And the funny thing, the interesting thing is we are all IT nerds, so we developed our own markup language that we write the script in. So if you read the script and print it out, it's all human readable, but it's also automatically processable. So what the table you see there is auto-generated from the script we wrote, and that same tool does like 1,000 other things and consistency checks to make sure that there's always a hand assigned to every puppet, every scene and stuff like that. And many other lists that we still do by hand.
Yes. We're doing mostly our to-do list. So we have a list of tasks and things we need to build. We need how many props we have, how many costumes we have, on where they are needed. We have the what's this one? I'm too far away to read it. My eyes get...
It's the on-site task list.
Yeah, the last one. So everything that doesn't get finished until we drive our truck to Berlin, we have lots of work to do on-site as well.
So this is the team list. And this is the on-site timetable.
Yeah, and as you can see, even if you can't read all the single lines in there, there are many blocks, and our whole convention consists of workload. So it's really hard to fit something fun in a convention inside of this and still have volunteers be able to join the other convention part.
Yeah, again, what you see there on screen right now is the schedule for the Paw Patrol team during the con.
Yeah.
And people, of course, still want to attend other events and also have some fun. And we have to plan all our rehearsals, all our setup around all the other events. You know, puppeteers might be fursuiters that want to take part in the parade, or they might be dealers in the dealer stand. And, well, they might be running other events themselves, like, of course, our stage department. And it's just a big pain of making all that fit and still not losing your volunteers. Because remember, your volunteers need to have fun. It's essential. It's why they do this.
Just to come back to the overall management part, we'll have even more stuff to do and even more things to consider. So
it's even before the con, of course.
Especially before the con.
Like, for example, when are you going to schedule rehearsal for a 30 to 40 people team?
And most of them need to be available because if half of the cast is not there, you can't rehearse. It just doesn't work that way. And all these 25 to 30 people need accommodation when they are coming around to rehearse with us.
But these people need to sleep somewhere.
And they need to eat. So you need catering for all these people.
Yep. Oh yeah. Catering is super important. If you invite like 30 people and have them work for an entire weekend and 18 days, 18 hours a day, 18 days a year.
I wish we had 18 days of rehearsal. Oh no, I don't wish for that.
Yeah. Catering is super important.
Yeah, so the day starts with a breakfast at 10, usually.
In theory, yeah.
Well, if the puppeteers don't oversleep.
The people who are supposed to bring the key to the workshop the breakfast is stored in.
Oh, yes. That was the stage construction weekend for Skies of a Star. The whole team was on time in the morning. Everyone was there, except the guy with the key. We waited 1 hour, for 2 hours, nothing. Nobody picking up the phone, no reaction on Telegram. We eventually got bored and starting the breakfast riot. It's remembered as the famous breakfast riot.
So we started sending them pictures over Telegram every 10 minutes because we were waiting for the breakfast and they were reading their messages and we had no idea where they were.
So we had to escalate a little.
Yeah, so we staged the breakfast riot. And next up is a thing you might have seen, and that happened from there. And that's, oh my God, I'm so regretting doing this. And that's how memes are created, to keep your staff happy. Yeah. But again, you have to keep them fueled, caffeinated, and preferably at a non-lethal working temperature.
But our working weekends are usually in the middle of the summer. So we decided to hit 2 birds with 1 stone and invented the caffeine slushy. So it's cool and energizing.
The one on the right, no?
The brown one, yeah.
What was in there?
Instant espresso on high levels, sugar, and a little bit of water, but mostly caffeine and sugar.
Amazing. Well, there's no danger of losing weight if you're working on our show. I mean, you use a lot of calories, that's true, but we will refill you.
Yeah, breakfast is a good thing, but you remember the one thing, we stored the breakfast on site and we thought this was a regular fridge, but it wasn't. It was a freezer.
Yeah.
So,
okay, yeah.
Can we get that one? So on the second day, we started and wanted to have breakfast again, and we just froze every part of that breakfast solid.
Yeah, it wasn't a fridge. It was the freezer.
Yeah. I remember that one. But I also remember the total opposite of that. We had our workshop in Hüngste for the building weekend, and the power supply got switched off for the whole workshop when we closed the door and removed the key. So even our fridge was without power. and our rehearsal and our building was finished, so we left that one for good, and nobody looked up that workshop for at least the next 3 months like that.
Yeah, and so the entire food was in the fridge for 3 months without actual cooling.
I really pity the guy who had to open the fridge for the first time after that. Let's not picture that. At least we don't have any photos of that, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and if we had, I wouldn't want to see them.
Yuck.
Anyway, back to the question, how to feed 30 puppeteers? Well, for the first 5 years or so, we passed around the menu of some pizza place in the area, and everyone just ordered for themselves. But the bigger the team got, the more time the whole process took, like taking the orders, reminding people to finally make their order, reminding people again, collecting the money, waiting for the people who forgot to bring cash, getting the food again because the shop messed up the order, motivating people to get back to work afterwards, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And at some point, we simply lost too much time and we stopped doing individual orders and put up a buffet, like you can see. So we made, basically, we don't choose people their food again. We just put up a buffet, and we're saving probably around 2 hours by that. Because we are saving on all the process on organizing the food. We simply order it a day ahead for everybody, and everybody can just choose on the buffet. And you have to remember that our puppet show is basically put together on 3 rehearsal weekends.
Exactly.
And if you only have 2 days on each rehearsal to do something and you're losing 2 hours for getting food, you're in the end...
That's a lot of time,
Yeah, you're ending basically losing an entire day. So that's another aspect of food being super important.
Yeah, of course, people still bring their own snacks, and sometimes they go a little bit overboard with that. You see here.
Yeah, as I said, you don't get to be hungry.
Our rehearsals are not the only events with volunteers to burn calories. We usually have a big barbecue on our stage building weekends, where we invite dozens of EF staff and friends to help build our large set pieces.
Yeah. See, that's the barbecue we're doing during the setup. That I do. I should have had breakfast, by the way.
Yeah.
I neglected my own catering.
All for you guys over there.
Yeah, I'm living on this stuff for now. It's one of those things that makes it feel like a real con now. So yeah, at the convention itself, we also have dedicated catering for staff.
If author leaves anything over for you.
Yeah, you have to be careful that your staff doesn't just eat everybody else's food.
Yeah.
We've introduced the staff buffet, starting with the puppet show members, because you saw the timetable. It really fills every 3 minutes, and the time where the stage and some other facilities are usually free is when everybody else goes to eat. So the puppet show does need to have their food at some other time and place. Yeah. Because they simply do not have the time to go to the restaurant, because they have to work when everybody else goes to eat.
Yep. And after the show, we usually do have our sushi party.
It's become a tradition for the puppeteers to, after the show, just order a big table of sushi and celebrate.
Yeah, and recover.
Yeah, it's a very nice way of rewarding yourself for a successful day of work.
So, okay, what's next on... You write a script and food happens?
Yeah, I guess I got a little bit carried away here. So let's move on to the next topic. I'd like to talk about another thing that you get to learn the hard way when working with volunteers.
The spider?
The spider. So... On our show, Demon Hunters, we decided to try something new and play a few scenes entirely in the form of shadow puppetry. So naturally, we wanted to use some classic shadow puppetry techniques, such as using flat cardboard cutouts for puppets instead of three-dimensional puppets we usually do for some of the characters.
And one of the characters was Pankrat the Spider.
Yeah.
One,
So Curry, our concept artist, made a rough sketch. And we asked our volunteers, who's up for this? Who wants to build a cardboard spider? A cardboard shape on a stick, it's like, how hard can that be? 2 people raised their hands and got the job. And, well, then, true to the title of this show, shit happened.
And as I'm not entirely innocent, I won't say anything regarding this without my lawyer.
Yeah, the first update was encouraging. Black spider, cardboard, nice. But nothing prepared me for what came next. Because what we forgot to take into account was that one person was an industrial process engineer and the other was an automotive mechatronics engineer. Remember the part where I told you a volunteer's payment is in living up to their own aspirations? So, this is what happened at the second rehearsal.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Weißt du was, du bist viel zu pragmatisch. Wie soll man denn rausmachen mit jemandem, der so pragmatisch ist? Gestern Arzt gearbeitet. Starke Leute. Ja, wobei schwer ist sie ja nicht. Ja, das ist relativ. Vorsicht. Einmal hier auf diese Seite? Ja. Habt ihr nichts zu tun oder was? Das Herzkommt um die 2 Sätze machen. Fang du am besten oder so. Schön, wenn man so Ideen, die...
Ich kenne einige, die diese Show nicht sehen können werden.
Pass du auf, dass du die Schraube nicht abscherst dabei, ne?
Okay, dann lass mal so weit runter, wie es geht.
Habt ihr die beiden im Griff?
Ja.
Crush.
Sogar noch im Keller weiter zu spielen.
Jetzt ist sie tot.
Yeah, simple shadow puppet. But then we decided this version is not nearly complicated enough.
So, this is version 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it nearly didn't fit through the door.
Yeah.
And we were like, the heck? We wanted a cardboard spider. What are you doing?
Yeah, you really started to panic that this is so complicated that it's a danger of failure is really high at that moment. Yeah.
So, jetzt. Geht mal runter für mich, dass ich mal gucken kann. Für mein Geld. Das sieht ja scheiße aus.
All right, and do you see the levers?
Yeah, this overcomplicated construction caused all kinds of challenges, like we see in that moment. It required 5 people to work in tight coordination, and we had to schedule extra rehearsals. One of them you're seeing right now. In Berlin, so and the scheduling is really full at that moment. So to get an additional stage slot, you need to work behind the scenes during other events. We can just close the curtain and work behind the stage as well.
Yeah, there's the classic dance going on in the front, and we are rehearsing stuff in the back while the party is going on.
Yeah, and we had to schedule additional rehearsal at that moment because it was so complicated. During our regular rehearsals, we just noticed it wasn't good enough. It wasn't working the way we had intended it. And so we had to schedule and call our operating crew for additional rehearsal, and only 2 people showed up.
In our Telegram group, we were like, we need an extra rehearsal. We have a backstage slot today at 2100. Everybody needs to be there. Yeah. And of course, not everybody reads their messages during the con, because as we said, we had they also want to have some fun, but we needed one of the operators. We definitely needed him, so we tried to call him and page him and send people after him.
And I was getting really, really angry. And at that moment, the door opened and some guy in bathrobes and slippers showed up. We just reached one of our main operators in the staff sauna. And he, once he got out of the sauna and took a look on his phone, he ran across the whole hotel lobby just with nothing more than a bathrobe on and it came to the backstage area just in time for rehearsing. That was really, really impressive dedication at that moment.
Also very, very funny, and I'm so angry I don't have any video of that to show you.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah. So you saw the whole construction, everything. It took them months, and it took them probably a lot of money too, that they never billed to us. Yeah. And a lot of dedication and trying and everything and rehearsals. And are you ready for the punchline? Are you all ready? Sit down, because here comes the punchline.
You lead the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heave ho!
All right, follow me to the forest.
Shit, Alice! Alice, I'm coming!
Yep, that's it.
A total 22 seconds?
Yes, that is the entire stage time for this prop. 22 seconds. All this for 22 seconds. Yeah, it looked awesome. And now we have two extremely proud engineers. And this concludes our chapter, The Joys of Working with Volunteers.
Yep.
And next up, our third chapter. You write a script and then shit gets real. Creating a playable scene setup. So what does that mean? Well, the main job and also the biggest challenge for the backstage team is, of course, turning my vague directions into a playable scene. And that involves determining which actors go where, move from A to B, what kind of set pieces need to be built, how, and where they're going to be placed. And yeah, that's kind of funny. We often sit together using gummy bears as stand-ins for all the different things on a piece of paper, and we just move around. And sometimes when we have too many actors on stage, like 8 characters in a shadow scene, we start just sitting down and discussing where goes where and drawing little diagrams and figuring that out.
Dann könnte sie natürlich sagen,
Sie könnte natürlich sagen, ich schaue mir das erstmal an, ihr bleibt alle da stehen. Ja, dann müssen wir auch den Text ein bisschen ändern. So, das heißt, sie könnte dann, wenn wir den Kokon hier hinhängen, könnte um den Kokon rumgehen auf die andere Seite. Dann lässt sie aber Greg los. Der hängt ja an ihrer Leine. Das heißt, entweder nimmt sie ihn mit oder sie übergibt ihn an Poison.
Oder Poison hat ihn von Anfang an.
Oder er hat ihn an. Ja.
Musste Poison ihn dann aber als nächstes loslassen.
Dann müssten wir die zwei nämlich auch tauschen. Weil Poison ja eigentlich auf der anderen Seite ist. Und dann haben wir Alice, Poison, Cooper und das gefällt mir gar nicht.
Es ist nicht Alice Cooper Poison.
Das ist wohl wahr, ja.
So in case you didn't get the joke with the first names in the last show, yeah, that was it. So yeah, it takes a lot of work getting that right. And yeah, the next thing that's super important here, that shows our stagehands exactly which set pieces go where in which scene. All the different slots where these can go are numbered from 1 to 7. And here's a few pictures of all the props and the backdrops, so people know how things are going to go together. Yeah, this is what we call the backstage script.
So after all the choreography with gummy bears, we derive this thing with the final position of each element we put on stage. And you see the audience view on the top left, and beside that is a top view. So every element we have to put on stage before the curtain opens is drawn in there, where to place it, and which pieces are needed in this scene. And well, it looks good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and because Icefuchs and me always get confused with audience left and stage left, we've just started numbering the segments of the stage from 1 to 7 because it's 6 meters wide, and we just 7.5 meters wide, and we are just placing props on the numbers.
Yeah, and the most line we get from people is, "Where do I enter the stage? From 1 or from 7?" This is so we can't confuse left and right anymore. It's just 1 or 7.
Yes. The top half of the backstage script is the picture of the actual scene that shows you the backdrop panels and in which sequence they should be put up, because that happened in the past that we put them up in the wrong sequence. Then below that you see all large set pieces that are going to be put up in the middle so puppeteers can walk behind them. And on the lower half you see a top view, so you can exactly see what's supposed to go where from the top. So if something's like in the front or in the back or wherever. And just because it is in the backstage script, of course, doesn't always mean that people are putting up with it. Here's another scene from The Skies of a Star. It's the scene inside the barn. And see, we made that little magnification on the right, and I circled the red bit. Do you see that on the right side? You see that is a light bulb, because Will is supposed to have like a super modern steampunk Edison type light bulb in his barn so people can see.
Yeah, you can even see in the top view there's a connector. You can power plug.
You can see the power plug in the bottom left, because that is the sign for the stagehand to know where actually the connector for that light bulb ends up. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look how this scene was played. Trick question: what's missing?
A light bulb?
Precisely. There's no light bulb there. Then 2 scenes later, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. You know, this thing was just lying around in the backstage area, and we had to figure out where this thing had to go. And so finally we ended up guessing which scene would be most fitting for that. And now it's there.
Yeah, so Arthur is being enlightened there, and I'm quite happy that you didn't put it up like in a dark outdoor scene, like in the middle of the woods or something, with a light bulb hanging down from the sky. That would have been kind of funny.
Yeah. So, but this still went way too well. So this is still the Shit Happens show. So let's demonstrate the process from the script to stage by a scene that went utterly and totally to shit. I'm talking about the wagon chase scene in Golden Eyes.
Oh, yeah. So, Golden Eyes. Yeah, half of the team cell gets PTSD when you mention it. So this one time, we wish we had put a little more actual thought into it. Most of the time, we over-engineer things, and this was seriously under-engineered. If you haven't seen the show, our main characters are being kidnapped on a Western-style horse carriage. The scene's all dark except for a few lanterns inside the wagon, and except for needing a lot of puppeteers in a very tight space, it didn't seem too hard. Okay. Here's some earlier concept art how this should look. So there should be like the image of a horse cart drawn on the backdrop, and then you have these arches where the fabric, like the tent fabric, is hanging from. And then everybody is playing under that, like under a roof. So that was the first idea. It would have required a little bit of building and some stable stands to put this on, but still, it didn't seem too complicated and perfectly doable. So we did a little 3D mock-up with this, with the lanterns in it, just to get an idea how this looks. And we said, yeah, this looks like a settler-style wagon, horse-drawn wagon.
Yeah, everything was fine. Until we thought we could make it much simpler. Oh boy, were we wrong. So pretty much the last minute we decided to not hang the construction from the ceiling truss. because it would take way too long during setup, during the 3 minutes of opening titles we had, and because it would surely swing back and forth. Nope, it was clearly much easier to use plastic cable ducts and form them into arcs, as you see on the pictures, held at the bottom by weighted parasol bases. Cheap and easy.
Yeah, the solution, but then held exactly for one brief rehearsal. The plastic becomes a lot more pliable depending on temperature, and we didn't take that into account. So on stage, when 10,000s of watts of equipment and 1,000 people were heating up the room, what was supposed to look like this ended up looking like this.
No. Natty! Hey, moron! Oh, Nettlebosh! Wake up and stay awake, stupid! Someone needs to watch over the hostages!
Yeah. Don't worry. I've got everything under control.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
I've got to do what a man's got to do.
Seriously?
No time. Go.
Oi, stop it!
Oink, oink, motherfucker.
Stop the wagon! Of course it's your fault. If you had been watching, then they wouldn't have gotten free. Oh, no fucking way I'm gonna waste more precious time just because you're just literally too stupid to piss.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's go through it one more time.
So we're off to a bad start right from the start. So it's starting to deform the moment the curtain opened.
Yeah, and do you see that that plank that goes across the whole length? That was supposed to prevent this from happening, but ended being up, making it much more worse.
Yeah, still putting weight on top made it worse, yeah.
Yep, and then it gets a lot worse.
Oh, yes. This guy is Liam, and he's not having a lot of fun right now because he's holding up the entire roof with his free hand, as you see there, and a puppet in another hand, so he's really stressed out at that moment.
Yeah, and even despite his heroic effort, he couldn't stop the disaster. And seconds later, the roof turned entirely into modern art. I really like the loop on the right side. It's really
in every
nice.
Direction, yeah. And while we are sitting in that cart and trying to stop this disaster from happening, we were clearly not able to stop it, and we needed help. We desperately needed help. So nobody was around to see our calls, and we couldn't talk to anybody because all the open microphones around us. So we had to make eye contact to one of the stagehands who was running around, and finally Fervin caught sight of our distress call and seemed to understand what we needed. An additional stagehand who was trying to hold this thing and stop it from collapsing. And he nodded and ran away. We never saw him in this scene again. So in that moment, when we actually had hope that our problem would get solved, and even all our hopes got crushed by somebody running away. And in the next scene break, we found him in the backstage area and asked him, "Why did you run away? Why didn't you just come over here and help and stabilize this?" He just said, "No, I would have totally ruined the magic. I didn't have black gloves on, so I needed first to find black gloves that nobody could see my hand." And that took so fucking long. He didn't appear until the scene was over. So it was a good idea from the start, but totally not helping at that moment.
Yeah, so what's the management lesson here?
This disaster was completely avoidable. You can already see in that photo how impossibly unstable the construction is going to be. everybody around is skeptical, but nobody dared to speak up because they did not want to get into that fight over the design over and over again.
Yeah, there was a heated discussions within the design team where one group would pitch their favorite new setup against the original design of the other group. And at some point, everybody was so sick and tired of having an argument that those in favor of the original design gave up and said, all right, have it your way. And then it was built like that without further testing.
So and the lesson is don't get personal quarrels get in the way of facts. In the end, physics don't care about your opinions.
Yep, because physics are a real bitch.
So how about something that totally worked that we can actually be proud of?
Okay, time to show off.
Demon Hunters.
Demon Hunters. And everybody's asked this, so we are going to give this some extra attention and hope we're not going to run out of time. Here's how we did the shadow projection screens in Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
So, this is what I wrote. And and here's how they made that shit happen. So it said, this scene is played in a classic shadow theater setup. A back projection screen is lowered in front of the puppet stage, and a row of bright projection lamps or actual digital projection lighting it up from behind. Shadows of the characters cast onto the screen by either placing the original three-dimensional rod puppets or specially made flat traditional shadow puppets between the light source and the screen. And that's all it said.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of word description there. And here's how they made that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we already did a lot of puppetry, but very little shadow puppetry up to this point. So we had to develop our technique from the scratch. We developed everything in iterations and see if and how we can combine classical shadow puppetry techniques with our regular three-dimensional puppets and take it all a step further.
Yeah.
First, this miniature you are seeing here, we are just making a mock-up. If we can just get with a simple cloth and lamps, we can get a sharp shadow projection. And we had all this material. We made our play rail from the aluminum parts, and I just made this mock-up with this.
So, and this is the first test we did. Yep. That's actually in our storage.
Yeah, this is a full-size one, and we tested different... first you see a projector over there. But that's another story. You hear it in 5 minutes about that. We tested different cloth to project on. This is...
PVC?
Yeah, PVC stuff, and this is the other one, just a simple bed sheet. You see, both work really well. The difference is not that visible, so the conclusion was we can go for the cheap solution and don't lose much of the
professional projection sheet.
Yeah.
So this is basically just a piece of cotton wool, you know.
Yeah. The only difference, if you take a really close look, is you see the light spot where the lens of that projector is. This is a cheap cloth. You can see it through it, and the cloth before that had a really opaque view and no highlights on that. But just for that simple difference, we shouldn't have thrown that much money on it.
A question we asked ourselves from the very start is, are we going to use physical props to cast all the shadows, or can we use household digital projectors as light sources for our shadows? And turns up, we can. It actually works really well.
Yeah, so we bought this. We thought of buying 3 projectors of the same brand and the same line, but at this stage we just bought one of them right before the first rehearsal, so we could test it, and still are in the 2 weeks part where we could get full refunds if it doesn't work. So we just had one of them, and the other 2 panels we just light up with simple tungsten lights. So we have one advanced projection and 2 simple backlights.
Yeah, the middle section was lighted up with the video projector, and the left and right part with traditional lamps. You can see it here.
Yeah.
We found out that both work really well, But, well, they made both very good shadows, but the detail that's possible with projecting a landscape, that just blows everything out of the water because it gives it so much more depth and a really, really nice illusion.
Yep. So after that, we bought the additional 2 projectors because we bought them.
3 individuals bought 1 projector each, which is also serving as their home cinema now.
Exactly. We didn't refund this. We don't own them. They are personally owned by the people who bought them. Yep.
Exactly. All right. But the show used both projected scenes, shadow scenes, and traditional puppet show scenes. So we needed to come away to quickly change back and forth between the 2 modes. And we even had one scene where we have mere seconds to switch.
Yeah.
And so this is what we came up with. This is the second rehearsal where we already have 3 projectors.
Yep. So. And we just hung the projection cloth from the ceiling, and we were able to pull it up and drop it again. So we can, in a short scene break, now you can see it. We can just mount this thing.
Yep, and pull it up and let it down again. Yeah, then this is what it looks like. Remember where we were sitting at the table discussing who goes in which order? That was part of the same thing. And then ideally you can let it down like that. And our aim was to let it down in like 3 seconds or so.
Yep.
And here's the same thing in action on stage.
So this is the end of the shadow world. It's fading out.
And this worked perfectly in the dress rehearsal. Yeah. No problem at all in the dress rehearsal. And what happens here? The one scene ends and nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly.
This is exactly the moment where the screen should have gone down within 5 seconds, and then the regular scene should have started up. What? Everybody goes off screen, screens get turned off, and 20 seconds later, someone shows up to lower the screen, and see, the sound effect was already gone, and it still takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are the actors. We're still trying to figure out what caused the delay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, once we made this slide, we asked on the channel what happened right there. I think the main factor was we need 2 people to operate the screen, one on the left, one on the right, and one person was missing, so they couldn't operate it, and they had to find a replacement, and that took most of that time.
Yeah, and someone with like an injured hand had to lower the screen with their fine hand. Yeah. But yeah, we still made the scene work. You know, it still worked. By the way, the reason why we needed 3 projectors and not 1 is, well, we only had 2 meters of throw between the backdrop and the throw distance, and the screen, and we had a slightly exotic aspect ratio of 48:9, and
we have that 7.5 meter wide stage and only 1.4 meters high, so this makes up this aspect ratio.
Yeah, and I'm totally missing a slide, I think.
Oh. Shit happens.
Yeah, shit happens. It obviously does. So let me show you a bit what the projected backdrops actually look like. These are basically all movies which had those 3 sections for 3 projectors in them. And because we are using home cinema projectors and we do not have specialized software, it's basically a big Windows desktop. We had to make sure that there's a transition between the projectors. Also, we have 3 cones of light coming out of those projectors. So when a puppet is not directly in front of the screen and walks across this, their shadow will move from light cone 1 into light cone 2, and that will cause some interesting distortions.
Yes.
It's like if they stand if they stand between the two cones of light, they will disappear. So to make this less noticeable, we placed those strategic black wooden trees.
Extra wide black trees, yeah.
Yeah, you can see that in both the 3 scenes we created. They get more evil from top to bottom. And we hid the transitions between the projectors with those trees.
Yeah, you can see that at 1/3 and 2/3. That's exactly the split between the projectors, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is double. So yeah, that's where I messed up. Yeah, and of course everybody wanted to see what went wrong.
Yeah,
during the crash.
Most likely, you know this the story here.
Yeah. So let me start that once again. So scene is going on, everybody's acting, and then suddenly, boom, lights go out. What happens? The control PC on the left just blue screened in the middle of the scene. Graphics driver crashed. We don't know why. So at the moment, our actors, as they always do, they will continue.
Mm-hmm.
In the back, you can see Liam and Icefux run to the control PC and just try to find out what's wrong with it. And now they're rebooting it.
That would have been real fast, like 20 to 30 seconds, and we would have been up and running again.
Yeah, there you can see Windows is coming up. Everybody's kind of laughing. And boom! The GUI comes up on the wrong virtual screen. So the GUI is now on the main screen, and the actual projection is now on the control screen. And what you see right now is Liam panicking, trying to get the GUI back on his screen, which he can't really do because everything is mirrored and the wrong way up and down. And that's when we closed the curtain and said, okay, we're stopping this right now. We have to reconfigure the PC, because after rebooting, it enumerated the screens in a different sequence and exchanged main screen 1 and 2. So that's me coming up right now there and resetting everything. So changing screen 1 to screen 2 and swapping the desktops. And then here's the alignment pattern, and everything's in the right sequence now. And now I'll go back to the stage and we restart the scene from the beginning.
You've rehearsed it 100 times and everything worked. And then you're playing it in front of 1,000 people and things explode. So we're going to try this again.
Okay, and there we go again. So wonderful.
Yep.
I can't believe it. We made it through our entire 103 slides in 90 minutes.
Yay! We didn't rehearse that one.
We did not rehearse this, because where would be the fun in that?
Yeah.
So we actually have 5 minutes left for your questions. I didn't expect that. So,
do you have any questions? Just type them in the Twitch chat or something like that.
Yeah, my app just restarted itself. When do we get pyro effects for the Puppet Show? We already had one. It was a tiny one, but it was a pyro effect. We had a little bit of flash paper going on during Endtide. Where they test lighted the power seaweed.
And we only dared to do that because this was the last year in the hotel and nobody could throw us off stage for doing that.
Another question. If you could remaster one of your previous show, which one would you choose? All of them. Actually, if I had unlimited time, I would remaster all of them.
Working with volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. We could use some good video and sound editors. So if you want to maybe volunteer for that, we'll try to keep you happy, buy you food, maybe.
Sometimes.
Yes, we've just been able to recover a lot of old footage, some of which we showed you during this talk. And yes, we are planning to eventually publish all the puppet shows we have footage of. The next new one obviously will be Juno Rising, but we are also still working on older shows and trying to get them released out of schedule. It will take a while though. So, any more questions? What comes first, the idea for the puppet show and then the EF theme, or the other ways around?
They're totally not related.
They're totally anymore. For a time, we tried to make the theme of the puppet show match the theme of the con, but that is very, very hard because you have to force your creativity to fit to a certain theme. And since we are not Wolfgang Holbein, we are not professional writers, it's much easier for us to come up with our own world and write it on our own terms. It's a lot less stressy, and it ends up with better stories. So we stopped trying to correlate it. Sometimes it does inspire EF themes, though. We've had a couple of times where the theme of the puppet show pretty much was the theme of EF next year.
Yeah, exactly.
But this gets voted on. It was not my decision. It just happens.
So we just inspire the people who are voting 1 year earlier with our show, and then they vote for exactly the same thing.
Exactly. So, any more questions? Any more questions from the chat? Mana mana ba dee ba dee bee. Mana mana ba dee bee dee. Mana mana ba dee ba dee bee ba dee bee ba dee bee ba dee bee dee bee. Oh, questions. When do you start rehearsing the show during the year? We typically start in May.
Exactly.
That means we have one rehearsal weekend in May, one in June, one early August, and then a dress rehearsal at the con itself, which is the first time we can test it out with all the visual elements and all the set pieces.
We have the proper stage size and all the technical equipment. So our first 3 rehearsals are really, really boiled down to the minimum we need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have another 2 minutes. Give me some questions. Twitch chat. How many people are working on this total? If you count the core team, so those who are working with us every year, it is currently around 35 people.
Yeah, and if you count all the people who are helping on site and doing several stuff in post-production, we count up to like 50 or
it's roughly 50 people if you call all contributors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty big joy of working with volunteers. No, it's honestly it's joy.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
We wouldn't do it. It's also pain, but we are kind of a little bit masochist. So
you have to be
exactly. What's your most successful recovery from an accident? I think this one. I think the one you just saw was the most successful recovery. We've had so much worse. What's the best way to help and support the puppet show? There's many. Even if you don't want to or can't contribute, there's our Patreon that you can donate to. Check out our YouTube channel. Yes, we are running with a very, very limited budget because it's a complicated show and there's only so much we can take from Eurofurence. So we have our own Patreon that you can donate to, and every euro helps making the show more awesome and making sure that some volunteers who paid stuff on their own because that was the way they wanted to do it, that helps us reimbursing at least a little bit of that.
Yeah, otherwise it's really hard helping us remotely. Most likely other help would be helping us in person, and that would mean being able to travel to Germany, North Rhine-Westphalia region, where our rehearsals are, and that kind of limits the group of people who are really interested and able of helping us during the show. If you are interested, just contact us on our usual ways. You should have known how to contact us, and we consider if there's something we need help with, but this limits it to people who are actually able to join us in person.
Yeah. And of course, if you are an artist and if you can do like speed paintings, or if you are very good with graphic design with Photoshop, you can help us make backdrops, scene elements, everything. Okay, I think it's time to wrap it up. Our time slot is over. Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you for watching. And we hope to see you in the audience of our next show.
Yeah.
And with that, I say, have a great afternoon.
Bye.
See you later. Mana mana pati pati pi. Mana mana pati piti. Mana mana pati pati pi pati pi pati pi.